and welcome to all our viewers in Algeria and around the world to AM News on Global Television, coming to you live from the nation's capital, Abuja. I am Jumai Manson. A quick reminder that Global Television is on DSTV channel 365 and Star Times channel 276. Now the news in full. The federal government has officially fixed 16 years as the minimum age for the admission into tertiary institutions in Algeria. Minister of Education Dr. Tunji Alausa announced this at the 2025 Joint Admission and Matriculation Board JAM policy meeting held in Abuja. He warned that any admission conducted outside the Central Admission Processing System CAP will be declared illegal. Ogochukwu Mobana had the details.
Minister of Education Dr. Tunji Alausa says the official age for university admission is to curb examination malpractice and unveil a Central Examination Malpractice Reporting Unit chaired by Permanent Secretary Abel Aniton. He also disclosed federal support for West African Examination Council and National Examination Council to adopt computer-based testing in their examination.
But the position is clear. The entry age for admission into tertiary institution is not officially pegged at 16 years. It was a deal for 18, which was to be effective from this year exercise, hence the need for this compliance.
Meanwhile, JAMB has pegged the minimum cut-off marks for admissions into tertiary institutions for the 2024-2025 academic section as follows: 150 for universities, 140 for colleges of nursing science, and 100 for polytechnics and colleges of education. JAMB Registrar Professor Ishaq Oleyede emphasized that these are the minimum acceptable scores and no institution is permitted to go below them, although they are free to set higher cut-off marks based on program competitiveness. He added that all admissions must be processed through CAPS and concluded within the approved admission calendar.
Adoption of 100 CAPS or who will be disqualified from participation in NATAP. That is, you will not come to it if your admission is not done through CAPS.
Also speaking at the meeting, Chairman of the Senate Committee on ICT, Senator Shuaibu Afolabi, and his House of Representatives counterpart, Olajide Stanley, commended JAMB for its reforms and pledged legislative support for the educational sector. Ogochukwu Mobana reporting for Global Television News. Minister of Education.
President Bola Tinubu has reaffirmed his admission's commitment to transparency and accountability in Nigeria's public finance system. Speaking at the opening of the 2025 National Conference on Public Accounts and Fiscal Governance in Abuja, the president, represented by the Minister of State for Finance, outlined key reforms targeted at strengthening fiscal discipline, digital financial management, and procurement transparency across ministries, departments, and agencies. Correspondent Anete Patrick reports.
It was a gathering of policymakers, lawmakers, and fiscal experts as the 2025 edition of the National Conference on Public Accounts and Fiscal Governance got underway in Abuja. The theme, Charting a New Course for Transparency and Sustainable Development, set the tone for urgent dialogue on Nigeria's fiscal direction.
In 2022 alone, Nigeria spent over 4 trillion on fuel subsidies, more than we allocated to capital expenditure. This was not only fiscally unsustainable, it was unjust. A subsidy that disproportionately benefited the affluent, encouraged smuggling, and breeded inefficiency was neither equitable nor strategic.
President Tinubu emphasized that good governance must be institutionalized, backed by platforms like Integrated Personnel and Payroll Information System, Government Integrated Finance and Management Information System, and the Open Treasury Portal to ensure that every naira spent is traceable and every officer accountable.
Since its removal, we have redirected those funds into targeted interventions, expanding our social safety nets, improving public transportation, and financing critical infrastructure projects. Most importantly, we have strengthened our fiscal buffers, making Nigeria more resilient to external shocks. Our commitment remains steadfast to ensure that the gains of this difficult yet necessary reform.
Lawmakers also took center stage. Chairman of the House Committee on Public Accounts, Honorable Bamidele Salam, declared that the National Assembly is united in its resolve to finally pass the long-awaited Audit Bill 10 years after it was introduced.
There is no better way to achieve this if we do not make concerted, conscious effort to recalibrate our fiscal management systems and improve our global transparency index. It is our hope that this conference will come up with clear, actionable and pragmatic measurable plans to achieve this objective in an immediate and short plus long-term measures.
Speaker of the House of Representatives, Honorable Tajudeen Abbas, said the 10th Assembly has taken bold steps to enhance oversight and fight corruption, highlighting the passage of several critical bills, including the Federal Audit Service Amendments Bill.
Recent audit reports revealed that over 300 billion naira of public funds remain unaccounted for. More than 60% of federal ministries, departments and agencies failed to comply with financial regulations. The reports identify challenges that include unauthorized environments, incomplete audit cycles, institutional leakages, and weak enforcement of rules.
On his part, Chairman of the Senate's Public Accounts Committee, Senator Aliu Wadada, urged all stakeholders to treat physical integrity as a national obligation, not a slogan. The conference, which continues for 4 days, is expected to produce a roadmap to reform Nigerians' public financial management systems, anchored on transparency, citizen engagement, and stronger legislative oversight. Annie Patrick, Global Television News.
The Senate has reiterated the readiness to be careful and independent review of concurrent bills received from the House of Representatives. The Senate leader, Senator Opeyemi Bamidele, Ekiti Central, stated this on the floor of the Red Chamber in Abuja. Our Senate correspondent, Topsy Gimba, completes the story.
The Senate leader, Senator Opeyemi Bamidele, stressed that while legislative cooperation is guided by the principle of chamber reciprocity, this does not equate to automatic approval without proper examination. He highlighted that just last week, the Senate approved 6 bills from the House of Representatives, but emphasized that reciprocity does not mean garbage in, garbage out. The Senate leader added that each bill will be thoroughly scrutinized to reflect diverse public interests. Senator Bamidele assured both chambers that the Senate remains committed to maintaining legislative integrity by ensuring all concordant bills undergo comprehensive evaluation before passage.
We will continue to consider concurrent bills sent from the House of Representatives the same way they also consider our own, and will ensure that every bill is given attention in overriding public interest.
President of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio, also noted recent progress, confirming that 6 House of Representatives bills were addressed last week. He added that at least 2 more bills are slated for consideration this week, underscoring the Senate's ongoing commitment to collaborative lawmaking.
We'll continue to do so. So please let our brothers in the House of Representatives know that we cannot joke with anything that comes from there. It takes 2 hands to clap, and we'll continue to work together. So proceed.
This stand reaffirms the Senate's dedication to legislative diligence and partnership, ensuring every bill is assessed on its merit for the benefit of the public. In a related development, the bill for an act to enable the growth of digital economy governance in Nigeria passed second reading in the Senate. Topsy Gimba, reporting for Global Television News.
In an effort to ensure transparency and efficiency in road maintenance funding, the House of Representatives has launched a special probe into implications of the Finance Act on the statutory 5% user charge allocated to the Federal Road Maintenance Agency. An ad hoc committee have been inaugurated to probe how changes in the law have affected road maintenance funding in the country. Our correspondent, Annette Patrick, tells us more. We apologize, that report will be brought in our subsequent bulletin. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has called for a fairer global system on climate action, finance and healthcare, urging BRICS nations to lead effort towards inclusive development and equity for emerging economics. Speaking at the 17th BRICS Summit in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, Tinubu said Nigeria was taking bold steps to expand renewable energy, tackle environmental degradation and achieve universal health coverage while aligning with the global agenda for sustainable development. The president told the world leaders that Nigeria was mainstreaming climate action, promoting nature-based solutions, strengthening urban resilience and aligning its national agenda with global renewable framework to ensure inclusive growth and environmental security. Overnight Vice President Kashim Shettima has reiterated Nigeria's commitment to comprehensive nuclear tests banned through collaboration with the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty Organization. He made this known while receiving the Executive Secretary of the organization, Dr. Robert Foyd, in a statement by his Senior Special Assistant to the President of Media and Communication, Stanley Uwocha. On a courtesy visit to the presidential villa, Shettima emphasized that Nigeria and other African countries currently patronize addressing external challenges such as poverty and the effects of climate change, rather than pursuit of nuclear weapons capability. The Labour Party has debunked the alleged expulsion of Peter Obi from the party. In a statement issued by the spokesman of the party, Ken Osukwa, said that the purported plan to suspend Obi is nothing but an activity of political imposters are acting on behalf of Shauli interests. The statement urged Nigerians to disregard the desperate ranting of such people whose only mission is to undermine the credibility and towering influence of Mr. Peter Obi in the coalition-building process aimed at rescuing Nigeria. Speaking of the House of Representatives, Tajuddin Abbas says the National Assembly must move beyond merely passing budgets to tackling how appropriated funds are translated into measurable public outcomes. Speaking through the House Majority Leader Julius Ihombere at the National Conference on Public Accounts and Fiscal Governance in Abuja, Abbas emphasized that sustainable development depends on transparent and accountable fiscal governance. He outlined initiatives taken by the 10th House of Representatives to improve fiscal oversight, including making audit reports publicly accessible, enhancing committee engagement with the Office of the Auditor General, and following up on previous audit fundings. The Executive Secretary of the Tertiary Education Trust Fund, TETFund, Sonny Echonu, has identified lack of knowledge and ignorance of procedure as the bedrock of not assessing interventions by tertiary institutions. Speaking at the opening ceremony of a two-day strategic sensitization engagement for DEX officers of beneficiary institutions held at the fund's headquarters in Abuja, Echonu said nearly 1 trillion of funds allocated is not assessed by institutions. Global TV correspondent Ramsey Enoch Agbo reports.
The Executive Secretary of the Tertiary Education Trust Fund, Sonny Echonu, in an interview with journalists at a strategic sensitization workshop organized by TETFund at its headquarters in Abuja, says the fund has been re-engineering and reprioritizing interventions, which necessitated the workshop.
Over the last 2 years, TETFund has gone through some major transformation. We've been re-engineering and re-prioritizing various intervention areas through our annual disbursements to our institutions. And we felt a very strong need to sensitize the TETFund desk officers and the key actors, heads of academic planning, heads of ICT, and heads of the entrepreneurship, to bring them up to date with the programs we are planning and executing in their institutions.
Some of the participants, who are drawn from both public and private sectors, in an interview expressed appreciation to TETFund for organizing the workshop.
Most of the speakers said it's a forum for us to interact, discuss our challenges we beneficiary institutions face with assessing TETFund interventions, and then give them feedback.
TED Fund is wonderful. TED Fund is very, very impactful, especially in our tertiary institutions because of the interventions that these institutions are able to access.
It has been a fulcrum for university training and for government institutions for a long time, and this opportunity for this training and workshop is exciting for participants, and so far it's been very revealing and we're happy about it.
TED Fund interventions have been major boost for both students and academias in Nigeria tertiary institutions. Therefore, strategic engagements are necessary for proper access to funds. Ramsey Enoch Agbo reporting for Global Television.
Meanwhile, the Joint Admissions and Matriculation Board, JAM, has announced 150 as a cutoff mark for admission into universities in Nigeria. The board made the decision during the 2025 policy meeting on admissions held at the Bola Ahmed Tinubu International Conference Center in Abuja. JAM stated that the cutoff mark for colleges for nursing stands at 140, colleges of agriculture 100, while colleges of education remain 100. The leadership of the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASU, has announced that it has directed all branches nationwide to suspend their service due to the delay in the payment of June 2025 salaries. The union cited the implementation of its no pay, no work resolution as a reason for this action. ASU branches at two federal universities, the Federal University of Jos and the University of Abuja, have already begun strike in line with this directive. The Benue State government has launched a quick response squad on the civil protection guards to boost security across the state. Governor Hyacinth Alia, who performed the launch in Makurdi, charged the officers to complement the effort of conventional security agencies in delivering results. Over now to Felicity in Dere for more reports.
As part of efforts to restore peace and enhance security, the Benue State government has launched a homegrown initiative, the Quick Response Squad, tasked with serving as first responders to threats across rural and urban communities. Governor Hyacinth Alia at the launch described the move as integral to his broader security vision, emphasized the need for absolute loyalty from the officers, noting that the squad will operate under the supervision of conventional security agencies to strengthen overall security efforts in the state. Governor Alia, represented by his deputy, Dr. Sam Odi, announced plans by the government to establish a security trust fund to meet the financial and logistical needs of the squad and other security outfits in the state.
It is our desire that this quick response squad, which is a joint task force of different security arms, will live up to the expectation for which the visionary, the governor of Benue State, has initiated it.
Also speaking, the special advisor to the governor on internal security and public safety, Johar, assured of the readiness of his team to defend the state if given the needed backing.
We are not a replacement to the conventional security, but we are just a support to the conventional security comprising of the military, the police, the civil defense, and other paramilitary. We are first responders to all crises. The police and all of them cannot be everywhere, but we are in every council ward in Benue State. Yes, you heard me. Thank you very much, you heard me. And we are willing and we are ready to protect this our land if given the necessary support.
The launch in Makurdi serves as the pilot phase of the initiative, with plans to extend the development to all 23 local government areas of Benue State. The Quick Response Squad is made up of personnel drawn from the Civil Joint Task Force, Nigerian Vigilante Group, Nigerian Forest and Security Services, and the Benue Civil Protection Guard. In Makurdi, Felicity Ndere reporting for Global TV News.
You are watching the live broadcast of AM News. When AM News returns, Liverpool return to training in wake of Jota's death. Details coming shortly, plus foreign and sports stories on the other side of this break. Please stay with us. You're welcome back, and if you're just tuning in, this is AM News on Global Television. Thank you for staying with us. The Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, NNPCL, has handed over 35 hybrid compressed natural gas CNG-powered buses to the Presidential Initiative on Compressed Natural Gas PICNG. During a brief ceremony held at the company towers in Abuja, the Group Chief Executive Officer of the oil firm, Bashir Bayo Ojulari, reiterated the company's commitment to support federal government's gas aspirations. Sadia Yakubu tells us more.
The Group Chief Executive Officer, Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, Bayo Ojulari, stated the move is in line with the NNPC Limited's effort to drive the adoption of compressed natural gas as a cleaner, cheaper and sustainable fuel alternative. He added that the company has recorded significant progress on gas supply, infrastructure, distribution and retail outlets.
In the wake of the PMS subsidy removal and in alignment with the federal government's push to promote CNG as a viable, cost-efficient alternative, NNPC previously donated 10 CNG buses through the NNPC Foundation.
Earlier in his address, the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Ekperikpe Ekpo, said the CNG buses represent not just vehicles, but serve as instruments of economic relief, social equity, and environmental responsibility. The minister described the initiative as a direct reflection of President Bola Tinubu's renewed hope agenda, a bold step to reduce the cost of transportation, lessen dependency on petrol, and ensure utilization of the nation's abundant natural gas resources for the benefit of the people.
The CNG story continues to unfold. The reality is that it's not just 2 years ago that the CNG story started in Nigeria. Some of us can remember that in 2008, there was actually a major initiative for CNG commercialization in Nigeria.
The Executive Vice President, Downstream NNPC Limited, Muminu Dagazao, said the adoption of CNG as a fuel alternative has significant economic benefits for the nation by reducing reliance on petroleum motor spirit and automotive gas oil as automotive fuels, which also leads to substantial cost savings and support for growth of local gas industry.
It boasted to reduce the cost of transportation, lessen our dependence on petrol, and ensure abundant natural resources are used to benefit our people.
The program coordinator, CEO Presidential CNG Initiative, Mr. Michael Oluwagbemi, commended the NNPC Limited for supporting the initiative, stressing that the company has been a reliable partner for the initiative since its commencement. Sadia Yakubu, Yahya, Global Television.
Over now to sports stories now. Liverpool's Stars returned to training on Tuesday for the first time since the tragic death of forward Diogo Jota. The Premier League Championship postponed the start of pre-season training after Jota, 28, and his brother Andre Silva died in a car crash in northern Spain last Thursday. Manager Arne Slot and a number of the Liverpool squad, led by Captain Virgil van Dijk, attended Jota's funeral in the hometown of Gardermoor near Porto on Saturday. The future of Victor Osimhen is nearly a dramatic conclusion as top clubs across Europe and the Middle East continue to battle for his signature, with time running out and speculations growing by the day. Osimhen, who is currently on holiday and expected to return to Napoli next week following the expiration of the highly successful loan spell at Galatasaray, remains the subject of intense interest for both the Turkish champions and the Saudi giant Al Hilal. But the saga has taken a fresh turn after the Nigerian striker reportedly expressed a strong preference to remain in Istanbul, where he scored 37 goals in 41 games last season. As Global TV News AM News comes to an end, let's take a quick look at our top stories again. Brought to you that the federal government has officially fixed 16 years as the minimum age of admission into tertiary institutions in Nigeria. In business, the National Petroleum Company Limited, NNPCL, has handed over 35 hybrid compressed natural gas CNG-powered buses
the Presidential Initiative on Compressed Natural Gas, PICNG. And in sports stories now, Liverpool Stars returned to training on Tuesday for the first time since the tragic death of forward Diogo Jota. And that's it on Global TV AM News. A quick reminder that Global TV is on DSTV channel 365 and Star Times channel 276. Kindly follow us across all social media platforms now showing on your screen by using @Global TV NG. I am Jumai Manson. Thank you for watching. Up next is Global Morning. Stay tuned.
Global Morning is your top morning show here on Global Television.
We bring you fresh news updates daily while delving into a variety of current affairs and topics.
And at the same time, keeping you well informed about important events, both national and internationals.
Global Morning serves as a valuable source of information, helping viewers like you start your day well informed.
Stay connected from Monday through Sunday to a wide range of latest news making rounds on Global Morning.
We're on the road to protest. And the president meets all of our demands.
This is Global Morning.
Thank you for joining us. After the passage of the intense storm system, particularly over the northeastern states, we're finally seeing some relief in that region. Expect a calmer sky and a break from the heavy downpour, at least for now. However, over the western parts of the country, the weather remains a bit more unstable. We are tracking isolated thunderstorms and scattered rain showers, which are likely to affect parts of Zamfara, Sokoto, some parts of Kebbi, Kaduna, Bauchi, and Taraba states. Looking further south and across the central cities, we are anticipating moderate rainfall, not as intense as earlier this week, but enough to keep things cool and damp. So if you're in these areas, keep your umbrellas handy and be mindful of localized flooding. Thank you for joining us.
morning show here on Global Television.
We bring you fresh news updates daily while delving into a variety of current affairs and topics.
And at the same time, keeping you well informed about important events, both national and internationals.
Global Morning serves as a valuable source of information, helping viewers like you start your day well informed.
Stay connected from Monday through Sunday to a wide range of latest news making rounds on Global Morning.
We're on the road to protest. And the president meets all of our demands.
This is Global Morning.
It's a great morning, no doubt about it. Thank you everyone again for starting your day with us. Well, in some sense, we are more free and I'm delighted to work of the program.
Yes, it is. Good morning, Uyi. It is a midweek edition of Global Morning. I am Jumai Manson, and it's great to be here. It's a beautiful day. The weather is amazing. Of course, you know, like I said, I always love it when it's
kind of cool,
cozy.
Sun, right?
Exactly. The rain for me is amazing. But some people will beg to differ.
Right.
But you know, some people have their preference. I guess it's great to be here, though. Good morning.
One must mate, another must poison.
Yes, it is.
I think we just need to find a way to deal with the elements, as they call them. Yesterday, just to mention, we had a brilliant guest here who talked about issues around how we respond to disasters, you know, and things like that. And for a country like Nigeria, you can't run away from the elements. No. The only thing is we need to tackle the challenge of the aftermath. All right. Every time it rains heavily in many parts of this country, we know what happens.
Yes.
Especially in areas around the south. Again, in particular, the south. But for whatever it is, everyone has got their own fair share of what comes with the different weathers, whether it's Hamilton, the dry season, rainy season, and things like that. But we need to find a blessing in the storm. Right.
We need to find a blessing, and it takes you and I. Modalities need to be put in place. Individuals have to own up to responsibilities. You have to be transparent about it. There's no way out of it. There's always a way, no matter what.
Right.
And intimating the general public on precautionary measures to take when it comes to issues of flood. It's a very serious issue. It has destroyed properties worth billions, will I say millions of naira. And at the same time, of course, we heard that from Kogi State, over 500 houses have been destroyed by, you know, flood. So I think we need a great management process in Nigeria, and the modalities need to be put in place, checkmates and all of that. But unfortunately, that's not where we are yet. But hopefully we will get there, and the needful will be done on that aspect when it comes to handling issues of disaster, flood, etc.
That's right. Just to also mention that yesterday we shared a piece of news with you. In fact, we did break the news that the Academic Staff Union of Universities was going to embark on a strike action. And, well, it was going to be chapter by chapter. So the first thing here is so-and-so chapter has gone on strike, workforce has been called out, starting from what we heard yesterday, University of Jos, and so on and so forth. And that was going to be a very big conversation on the program this morning. But then we did reach out to the chairman of the union, of the Abuja University of Abuja chapter, who highlighted a very, some streak of, if you like, points to say that, look, first of all, the strike is not a continuation of the previous strike.
Yes.
He said part of the agreement that the Academic Staff Union of Universities, that is ASU, had reached with the federal government is to say that salaries must be paid on or before the 3rd of the new month. In other words, salaries for the month of January, let's say June, must be paid on or before the 3rd of July. So that's a very pivotal part of the agreement they had reached with the federal government. And he said for the past several months, that hadn't been the case, that there had been instances where the government did not even pay until as late as 10th or 12th of the next month. Therefore, for this month, what they did was to say, look, chapters should recommend what action they were going to take in this direction, and different chapters started doing that. And he did say that for the University of Abuja in particular, they were going to kick in their strike by 11:59 p.m. on Sunday.
Yes.
But then, just before that would happen, salaries had started coming through, so there was no need for that strike action as far as the University of Abuja is concerned. And for those that had gone on strike, for example, Ilori, let's say Nasara, Edo, yes, and then what else? Jos, for example, they had started coming back to work because salaries had started coming through for all of them. So this is to say that we hope this doesn't continue. We cannot have a situation where there's a cycle of strike every other month.
Exactly.
Because the federal government, according to the Academic Staff Union of Universities, has again defaulted, all right, in its responsibility or in discharge of its responsibility of ensuring that salaries are paid as and when due. And it raises the question of, if the government is not able to pay salaries on or before the 3rd or say the 4th of the next month, what are the hurdles, what are the obstacles the government is dealing with? Is this systemic, maybe with the platform on which payments are made, or is it just a human error, or people not just taking their jobs seriously?
Or being nonchalant when it comes to education.
Those issues must be highlighted and dealt with head on.
And you know what baffles me is we keep going through the same cycle. It plays the same way. It's always the same thing. Individuals, governments will breach on a particular agreement, and then, ASU will definitely go on strike. It's the same pattern, year in, year on. It's the same pattern if you've watched it, but it's just unfortunate that we should take education as a serious. These are our future leaders. I keep saying it. I will continue to emphasize on it because it's very important we understand the importance of education. We don't take it seriously in Nigeria. Like, look at those primary school kids. They've been at home, and exams are starting in other schools. They've been at home in the public school here in the FCT. And it's just unfortunate that this is what it is. For as much as I would commend Mr. Project, the FCT minister, no other person than
Nyesom Wike.
Nyesom Wike. I commend the commission, I commend the benefits in which individuals have when it comes to access of roads and all of that, water, etc. But at the same time, there should be a balance. It's not complete when there is but. There's always something there. But if he's amazing, he has comes to these issues. But for as much as he's doing so much, I think he can do much more to create that balance for every sector to have a feel of what it looks like to be comfortable and to be all right. It's very important.
Well, I think this is one song, so to speak, we are going to continue to sing for the foreseeable future. Because I rode with a neighbor to the office this morning, and part of the conversation we had was about school. Normally his children would be in the car and things like that. So I didn't notice them this morning. And he says, don't mind them, they're done with exams. It feels great knowing that they wrapped up another term, which again in all is another session that's in the bag for them. But the question is, can children in public schools across the FCT say the same? I mean, your answer is as good as mine, sadly. Let's take a quick break, everyone. When we return shortly, we'll take you through the papers and bring you headlines. Do stay with us.
You are welcome back. It's Global Morning on Global Television, and at about this point, it's the newspaper review segment, and I will begin with the first paper of the day, and it is the Guardian newspaper. And below the nameplate of the Guardian, it says LP fractions differ on threats to expel OB, and that you will find on page 3. And it says FG issues 3.5 million passports, saves 1 billion naira from reform, says minister. And that read you will find on page 4. Now next is the picture of the Vice President Kashim Shettima, and it says 40% of Nigerian children malnourished, Shettima laments, and that you will find on page 4. Unfortunate, sad incident there. And the Star Story says varsities fume as FG fixes 150 cutoff mark, 16 years admission age. And it says here, quote and unquote, it says, if you go by the cutoff mark for universities, 150 means you scored less than 50 marks for each of 4 subjects, which is less than 50%, while 100 for polytechnic means 25 marks in each subject, which is not a pass mark. It is sad that we have left what should be looked into to discuss about numbers. And moving on now, below all of that, it says ADC rules out preferential treatment bars presidential aspirant from public declarations. Oshun Harun, it says, stages protest demand suspension of council funds, and that's in Oshun State. And NAFDAC uncovers expired chemicals, additives worth 1 billion naira, arrest 3 in Lagos, and that you will find on page 4. Rep seeks to increase seats to 552, allocate 10% to women. Really? All right, you'll find that on page 3. And it says U.S. halt multi-entry visa for Nigerians, reduces validity to 3 months. And that read you will find on page 2. And that is all the main news on the Guardian. Please go out and get yourself a copy to be well abreast. Next, The Nation.
All right, let's see The Nation for you quickly, just beneath the name plate of it. Admission age pegged at 16, JAMB institutions fixed cutoff mark at 150, 100. Governor, bandits live among us in Katsina, apparently. That's coming from Governor Diko Rada, the governor of Katsina State. And then the Star headline reads, Opposition's early 2027 moves won't distract Tinubu, says Idris. Two riders here actually say, President focused on delivery of dividends. Bashiru, APC supports in the North solid. U.S. restricts Nigerians, others to single entry, 3-month visas. Used to be multiple entry, 2-year visa. But now that policy has been reviewed, all thanks to President Donald Trump. At the foot of the paper, Natasha fails to resume at Senate. Senate House clash over concurrence on bills. Okay, so those are your headlines from The Nation today. Grab a copy and follow the details for yourself. We flip over now to the New Telegraph newspaper.
All right, the New Telegraph. Above the nameplate, it says OPS urges Tinubu to visit Trump over frosty Nigerian-U.S. relationship. And below all of that, we have FG issues over 3.5 million passports, saves 1 billion naira from reforms, and that you find on page 2, and that's from Tunji Ojo. And of course, that was on the previous newspaper. Plan to expel OB, laughable, desperate kick of dying horse, LP, and that's on page 8. And it says, Autumn to Alia, account for state LG funds. And the writer says grassroots decaying over implementation of local government autonomy, and that you will find on page 7. 2027, we have no preferred presidential aspirant, ADC. Tinubu not distracted by coalition, FG says, and that you will find on page 7. Now, the Star Story on the New Telegraph reads, FG pegs tertiary institutions minimum admission age at 16. Reps to reserve 10% seat for women, 5% for PLWDS in NAS. And it says, floods panel to address 5% user charge collection on PMS. And that you will find on page 4 and 8 of the New Telegraph. Now, cybersecurity laws, China backs Nigeria on enforcement. And the rider reads, proposes joint operations targeting online gambling, internet fraud. And that you will find on page 8. Most U.S. visas for Nigerians now single entry, 3-month validity. And ASU declares no pay, no work over delayed June salary. And that's on page 2. And the writer says, Uni Abuja, kickoff action. And below the foot it says, microscopic plant stones can cause tooth enamel damage. And that's a study. And that you will find on page 30. Next is the Nigerian Tribune.
All right, let's move real quick. Top left corner first. U.S. issues new visa policy for Nigerians. Writer tells us non-immigrants, non-diplomatic visas, now single entry, 3-month validity. Top right corner, Olubado, that's your kicker. CCRI president says Ladoja Hail feat as 21-day mourning period for Olakunlehin begins. The Star headline, Kicker 2027, ADC has no preferred presidential aspirants, Mark. Again, 2 riders there for you. Party assembles 97 lawyers to challenge fake suit against interim leadership. 2 Ondo ex-governorship candidates, Jegede Ajayi, others, join coalition. It's getting bigger by the day. And then on the left-hand side of it, Dangote Refinery reduces fuel price again. Ex-depot price now 820 naira per liter.
Sounds good.
We have issued 3.5 million passports, saved 1 billion naira from reforms. That is credited to Minister of Interior, Dr. Olumbumi Tunji Ojo. Recovered fund from corruption cases channeled into Nelfund Consumer Credit Scheme, others EFCC. And then we have the Star headline here, or next to it, JAMB sets 150 as cutoff mark for universities. FG pegs university admission age as 16, declares admission outside caps illegal. EFCC quizzes suspects as customs intercepts undeclared foreign currencies worth 653.9 million naira at Kano Airport. CBN ends loan waivers, orders banks to submit capital plans July 14. So much for the Nigerian Tribune, and that leads us next to the Daily Trust.
All right, now Daily Trust giving us some very trusty stories here. I'm trying to be like you.
Well, you're doing well.
All right, now the Star story reads, questions over Tinubu's 2027 campaign posters. And below that it says FG pegs admission age in tertiary institution at 16. Of course, that's trending on all the headlines now. It's very important that we all know that it's 16.
I'm sure parents are very keen on this kind of story.
Exactly. Of course, you know, it was 18 at a point that if you, when you're done with secondary school,
you have to wait until you're 18.
And I'm sure a lot of, it didn't sit well with so many parents because waiting 3 years when you're supposed to be on the brink of graduating from the university. Are you kidding me? So I'm sure this is fine. I think this is okay. This will sit well with parents now. It says FG, okay, Nigerians to get 3-month single entry U.S. visa on the new policy. This is not, I'm sure this will not sit well with a lot of Nigerians. I know for sure. And that you will find on page 37. We have no preferred presidential aspirant, and that's from David Mark, and that you will find on page 14. And it reads here, FCT primary school teachers suspend 3-month strike. Okay, that's amazing news there. 90% of bandits in Castina, indigents, that's from Governor Rada, and students accused of setting boyfriend ablaze, really. And that you will find on page 2. I wonder what must have led to that.
Right.
Unfaithfulness.
Yeah, quite sad, right?
Very sad. It's unfortunate. FG hints at electricity tariff hike, and that you will find on page 27. And that's all on the Daily Trust newspaper. Go out and grab yourself a copy. And next, but not the least, or will I say...
Maybe we're going to leave it here.
We're going to leave it here.
All right,
on
so
the Punch.
just the Punch newspaper. 3 headlines, incidentally, just above the name mast for you. I'll begin from the top right to the picture of the suspended. Well, some people say embattled Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan. It says Natasha postpones Senate return as National Assembly awaits apology. Presidency blasts Obi as Ohanaeze demands Kanu's release. 2025 admission, JAMB sets 150 benchmark, bars under 16. U.S. cuts Nigerians' visa validity to 3 months. And then the star headline with the kicker, 2027 presidency, Mark cautions Atiku Obi as federal government slams coalition chiefs. Let's see what the two writers say. Presidency, Mark clash over Tinubu's reforms. APC, PDP chieftains join ADC in Borno, Gombe, Ondo, Jigawa. I'll bring it down a little further. Customs, EFCC step up airport surveillance against money laundering. The 3 school children, Okada rider crushed to death in Oyo. Quite a pathetic story there. Lastly, Adeola will run for Ogun governorship in 2027. Aid confirms. Well, the die is cast already as far as 2027 polls are concerned. Turns out this is what we're living it with the papers this morning. We do hope you take out time to read up details of these papers we've brought to you for yourself so you can stay ahead of the news. Remember, as always, that Global Television does not make any editorial contribution whatsoever to all of these papers. All we do here is to bring you the headlines and guide you through the day's news. That way you can avoid fake news.
Exactly, well said. All right, keep watching It's Global Morning. Do not go anywhere. The first discussion of the day continues shortly. All about women. And let's see what it holds. Stay tuned.
Is your top morning show here on Global Television.
We bring you fresh news updates daily while delving into a variety of current affairs and topics.
And at the same time, keeping you well informed about important events, both national and international.
Global Morning serves as a valuable source of information, helping viewers like you start your day well informed.
Stay connected from Monday through Sunday to a wide range of latest news making rounds on Global Morning.
We're on the road to protest. And the president meets all of our demands.
This is Global Morning.
Morning is your top morning show here on Global Television.
We bring you fresh news updates daily while delving into a variety of current affairs and topics.
And at the same time, keeping you well informed about important events, both national and internationals.
Global Morning serves as a valuable source of information, helping viewers like you start your day well informed.
Stay connected from Monday through Sunday to a wide range of latest news making rounds on Global Morning.
We're on the road to protest. And the president meets all of our demands.
This is Global Morning.
Global Morning is your top morning show here on Global Television.
We bring you fresh news updates daily while delving into a variety of current affairs and topics.
And at the same time, keeping you well informed about important events, both national and internationals.
Global Morning serves as a valuable source of information, helping viewers like you start your day well informed.
Stay connected from Monday through Sunday to a wide range of latest news making rounds on Global Morning.
We're on the road to protest. And the president meets all of our demands.
This is Global Morning.
You're welcome back, and it is the first discussion of the day on Global Morning on Global Television. And today we're going to be talking about a very unique topic today. It is the rise of women breadwinners, changing roles and changing expectations. Now, of course, we know the traditional role within families are shifting, with more women taking up more responsibilities, being the primary earners. Now, the change is driven by various factors, including increased educational and professional opportunities for women, economic instability, and involving social views on gender issues. Now today, I am not doing it alone. I am being joined by Amara Chidinma Ezedionu. 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 And of course, she is a workforce optimization expert. And she's here, and she's going to break it down to us. Amara, first of all, I want to appreciate you for being on the program. And then when I heard this topic about the rise of women breadwinners, of course, changing roles and changing expectation, it speaks a lot. Now, look at it. What exactly is driving that force right now as we speak? Because there are lots and lots of women being breadwinners stepping up to that plate. Let's talk about it a bit.
Thank you, Jimmy, and it's such a pleasure to be here with you this morning.
You are most welcome, darling.
Of course, I think as the society evolves, as people go to school, as things change, including AI, everything changing, of course, I think that traditional roles have to be challenged. Things have to also change the way we think. And part of it is why women are beginning to challenge the stereotypic roles that they've been given, yes. I give it mainly to education. People are getting more aware. People are getting more self-aware, and they're able to talk about or see their capabilities. What is it they can do more besides being mothers, besides cooking, besides looking after grown men as wives and mothers? So that's what's happening.
Really? Now let's look at this. How is this shift impacting traditional gender roles in the society?
It's changing everything. It's changing everything. It's forcing families to rethink leadership in the homes. The truth is, who can do anything, please get it done. If you can bring money home, then go and bring it. You know, so it's changing the dynamics of who looks after the children from 8 to 5. It's changing the dynamics of who has to cook. The only thing it hasn't changed yet is who gets pregnant. But, you know, being pregnant is for 9 months, and it's not a death sentence. You're not even invalid. So the moment the baby comes out, it's changing the role of who takes care of this baby. Anybody who can should.
Now let's look at the pressure on women, you know, and concerning this shift and all of that, and the society in which we find ourselves. You know, we're Africans, we're Nigerians, and when a woman brings so much to the table, there's always this eyebrow that is raised when it comes to a woman doing so much. If she doesn't complain, her family will definitely complain and say, why are you allowing him spend your own money? So do you think, as Africans, as Nigerians, talking about the mental state here, are we prepared for that? A woman stepping up to the plate, being the breadwinner. I have seen situations whereby the man is the stay-at-home dad, and the woman brings in so much. Like, really, do you think as Nigerians, Africans, are we prepared without that a little bit of eyebrow and, of course, you know, that stigma attached to it?
Well, I will not choose to call it stigma. I think it's evolution. The society continues to evolve. We may not be prepared, but we are getting prepared for it, because the truth is, it's coming. It's coming in a matter of time. It's just a matter of time. So what I would encourage the African woman is respect. You know, we must continue to encourage respect on both sides. The man, the woman, there must be agreements. So we're not doing it because we want to show off. There is none to show off. There's none to show off, really. It's a matter of necessity. The society we're in today behoves us to do what we can to add value to every environment we find ourselves. So no stigma. Don't feel any less than anything. Don't feel more than anything. It's, for me, it's having self-fulfillment. That yes, I can do this, and I did it. All right? As against, I could have done that. I should be able to do that, but I'm not given the opportunity to do that. And, you know, a lot of women become bitter as they age because of this. So there'll be no room for bitterness anymore. Everybody, go ahead and fulfill yourself. That's right.
Now let's look at the male gender. There's some that they feel their ego is bruised when a woman does so much and she brings all that to the table and she shows that strong support to help the family grow. Now, how can a man actually balance this to support his partner that, hey, I know you're doing so much, but let me give you that support without you as my partner or my wife bruising my ego?
Well, like I said before, there has to be mutual respect. So discussions have to happen before people get into these roles that they want to get into. And I would encourage our men, part of what bruises their ego sometimes is not even from their wives, it's from what their friends are saying to them, what their families are saying to them.
But is it easy though, Amara?
To
just close up your ears and not listen to what family and friends are talking about?
No, it can't be easy. You have to help your family and friends see what you're seeing. You have to, yes, help
He's
them
not
to
working.
see.
What do you want to see?
Well, it's eventually working.
Oh, you're earning more than him.
Consistent.
What do you want to see? You're earning more than him. What do you want to see?
Well, like I said, is the woman respecting you? Are you respecting her? Are we having conversations along these lines? Are we keeping open minds? Because the truth is, what else would be the role of the woman apart from looking after the children? When the children are grown, what happens? Because actually the children grow and live. You know, generally now a 50-year-old woman will probably be almost having an empty nest. So what does she do after that? All right, so these things will eventually catch up with us. The earlier we face them, the better for all of us. The truth is, there are some women who actually have capacity.
Yes,
they have capability, and it's amazing what their capacities can bring to the table. What would you rather? That the family is projected, or that your ego comes first and you are all living in, what do I call it? You know, bitterness, rage, anger, unfulfilled. At the end of the day, I think allowing men to be all they can be, it's better for the entire family.
Well, let me ask you a question, though, and I'm sure it's in minds of so many individuals out there. When should a woman who is the breadwinner, who has decided on her own to take up this full responsibility of the home front, and she has a partner who is like a desicle, who doesn't even bring in so much, who crosses his legs and says, and keeps his own monies, and when should a woman be all out and open? Because you know, there's this saying that goes, it's my money, it's my money, and then when it's both partners, it's our money. So when does it get to that point that you realize that, okay, it's our money, not just your money now or my money, it's our money, even if it's yours. But he's not bringing anything to the table. Should she still continue? Because there are so many women who are going through being the breadwinner of the family, doing all that it takes to put the family together. And she has a partner or a spouse who feels, oh, let her do it. She wants to do it. Let her do it.
I'm not sure I would toe your line right now. It's not about the lackadaisical man or lazy man. In fact, the word is lazy. No, I'm talking about two grown-ups who are making the best they can for their family. I'm not talking about a man who can and who wouldn't. I do not think any woman should keep that man in her home. I'm sorry. Everybody should do the best they can. What I'm saying is, if the woman's input is giving more outcome or output to the family, the woman should not be suppressed, rather supported
and encouraged.
Correct. But if for example, the man has some challenges for any reason, he's going and he falls down financially, the woman is there to support. It doesn't have to be a lifetime support. It doesn't have to be the way of life, because she's supporting you for you to get up. The truth is, everybody should bring something to the table, something very worthy. And sometimes it's not necessarily money. If the man is holding the family for the woman to shine, the man is bringing so much. And if they have an open relationship where they can converse, then I'm sure the woman will appreciate the man's contribution. So no ego to be bruised. Nobody is like a physical. Everybody's watching out for each other and for the family. So I do not think it's a case of where the woman is now feeling proud, you know, and people are telling her you're feeding the man. No. It's about our family. And that's because everyone is contributing to make our family strong.
Well said. Well said, because there are some individuals out there who feel that because I bring so much to the table, and then just the, you know, the passive words of family and friends could bring a lot of
well, we have
issues.
to correct them. The truth is, if nobody's supporting you, you probably won't be bringing a lot to the table. If nobody's holding the home for you, you will be destabilized. Remember that if you are mentally unstable, you can't even be as productive.
Very true.
So if the man is giving you all the support, I've seen some men that are the ones that said, go and get a PhD, I'll be here looking after the children. Go and do this, go for the meeting. The man is supportive, doing everything. You can no longer say it's my money. Because remove the support, remove the pillar, you come crashing down. I think that conversations should be held before, during, and as we continue.
Okay. Now, let me ask you a question, Amara. What advice will you give to a woman who is navigating these roles when it comes to being the breadwinner and bringing so much when it comes to expectations in the home front?
Well, what I can say is that the woman who is doing all of these needs to be supported, not silenced. And she has to do it from a place of being humane, having humanity in mind, not just from a place of self-aggrandizement. It's the world is not only about you, it's about all of us. So I would encourage this woman to please still show respect to all the people that are supporting her to achieve her dream. And for the society, it's important that we encourage this woman. This woman is satisfying a deep longing that she has, that she didn't put in herself, by the way. So we all can support her, and we all can support everybody to be all they can be.
I want to ask a question about, because what she's bringing to the table sometimes, like you mentioned, she's a breadwinner, definitely. She brings in finance when it comes to the money aspect. Now, what are the, you know, the strategies when it comes to positive or negative, when it comes to the financial aspect of that, and how can she uphold herself when it comes to finances?
That's a deep one, you know. Yes, she brings finances, and money is very important to keep a home today. So I would say to her, you have to learn to manage this money, because, you know, if money is not properly managed, we all know that's going to fly away. And in managing that money, if you're a breadwinner, I'm thinking that you're either married or you're a single mom, maybe divorced or widowed or something like that. So you have to manage the money, whether you want to enlist the services of financial experts to help you for the purpose of consolidation as you progress. You also have to learn decision making. By the way, decision-making skills, I think it's one of the top, you know, skills that every human being should have. So a lot of times, this woman becomes feeble, just the way, I don't know, maybe she's woman, you know. So really, you have to be sure that you are firm. You know, your decision-making skills are above board. You can learn if you want to. You can, whatever you need to do to make sure that your decision-making skills, because that's the only way to manage this finance in such a way that people around you are not bruised. Remember, you need everybody's support to keep staying on top.
But I want to ask a question, Amara. For as much as it's an amazing thing when a woman is the breadwinner, because of course we're evolving every day,
That's right.
and it takes understanding, it takes two individuals who are mature enough to understand that, hey, it doesn't matter who brings what, as long as our family is in check. The woman, you might earn more than me, but as a woman though, being a woman, sometimes is it overwhelming? Despite having all the support, you know, the way we've been created, God has made the man to be like that security, that protector, he's the pillar. And then a woman taking over that role, sometimes, even if you have all the support and he's there, it doesn't matter whether he brings, it doesn't matter how little or how much he brings, showing that you got this, I'm proud of you, all those really lovely words of encouragement. But sometimes, does it take a toll on a woman sometimes?
Oh yes, it takes a toll on her emotionally. It takes a toll on her fragile body. I believe that the woman's body is fragile, maybe not as strong as the man, and I think nature made it that way, and I stand to be corrected. So yes, it takes a toll on her. Again, what should we do about it? Because you see, this woman will not also be willing to give up what she's bringing. And yet it's taking a toll on her. She's taking, you know, emotional burden, she's taking financial burden, she's taking decision-making burden. It's a whole lot. And, you know, as she climbs, she's meeting more people. She's exposed to temptations, a lot of them. Everybody wants to have a bite of her. Everybody wants to know what makes this person tick. So the more she grows, the more she's in the eyes of people, you know, on the spotlight. So all of that are, if you ask me, challenging. Again, how should we manage all of this? Support. She must be supported all through. She has to have people who look out for her. She has to have people who will tell her, oh, it's okay, you're making progress, rest when you need to rest. She has to have people that when she wants to rest, they're holding it for her, you know, holding it down, whether it's baby, whether it's work, whatever it is. She has to remember to look after herself in the midst of all this, yeah? She must, you know, pay attention to her. If she needs to take a holiday, 1 week, 2 days, she should do that. She needs to shut down her phone, have her me time, she should do that. She needs to, in all of this, not lose herself, because it's so easy to do that.
But Amara, you know, I was speaking to a friend of mine, and she said something. She said, Jumai, listen, for as much as women are becoming breadwinners, like you mentioned, we're evolving when it comes to trying to hold the home front and do what the men are doing. Sometimes, even most times, we do it better than the men in trying to...
Don't start this war.
I'm just saying, okay, apologies to all the amazing men out there. But when it comes to putting things together, multitasking, you're doing this, you're that, you're here, you're there. You can actually calculate before you understand as a woman. But sometimes, does it take a toll on the marriage, Amara?
Oh, yes, it does.
And can it actually cause separation? Sometimes with no hard feelings, but sometimes a woman needs to be pampered. A woman needs that soft life, that soft landing, when she doesn't have to think about the bills, she doesn't need to think about it. And she has an amazing partner, don't forget. We're talking about two individuals who understand. Because this is the major problem in so many homes, Amara. A lot of individuals battle with this particular issue. There's no issue at all. He's supportive, he's kind, he's understanding, but she brings in so much, and sometimes she just wants to, you know.
I wouldn't know what you're defining as being supportive and being caring. And
like what you said, he's there. He's always telling her, you got this, but at the same time.
Remember, support, first of all, is internal.
Yes, it is.
Before we start seeing what he does, it's about what he thinks. So, what does he genuinely think about her? Yes. Because I can hold your baby for you, our baby, but in my heart, I'm actually not holding that baby. My father told me a story of a boy who said to his father, Father, you said I should stand up. I'm standing up, but in my heart, I'm sitting down. My father told me that story to emphasize the importance of the state of your mind when it comes to whatever it is that you do. A woman whose man actually cares about her, from, you know, it's internal, intrinsically, will not have a problem being pampered, will not have any other problem, I tell you. But when he's doing it because, oh, that's what I have to do to make sure she brings food home, that's where the problem is. And it's a matter of time. Everything internal will show. And so the problem comes when these things internally begins to show, because they must show. Of course, the marriage is going to break down, because one of the things it attacks is communication. Once communication is attacked, conflict starts rising, starts brewing, and before you know it, everybody wants to pack up. So yes, the man has to be, or whoever is around, a woman who is successful, a woman who is bringing home bread, whoever is around her must check themselves.
All right, Amara, I know you're a workshop optimization expert when it comes to issues like you can break down anything at all. I understand that part. But how do you know when he's genuinely happy? How do you know whether he's genuinely supportive? How do you know?
First of all, time will tell. First of all, yes.
The look on your eyes when you said that, God, you're so cheeky.
That's right. Time will tell. I like this question because you're looking out for genuineness.
Exactly.
You're going to pay attention to his patterns. And his language, you're going to pay attention to his language. I wish I have the time to talk about language.
Please go
That's
ahead.
one of the things that will give him out. So sometimes you come home and he says something like, baby, you were out too long today. A pointer. Because that's a complaint. Yes. He started with baby.
Yeah.
But he's just complained and you did not realize that he complained.
Some women are too tired to listen to that.
So that language persists. It comes in different forms. So for me, I'm going to watch your patterns, how you do what you do. I'm going to watch your language all the time. I'm going to now watch the actions that you take. I'm going to watch out for your beliefs, the things that you hold to be true without evidence. Because I call these things filters. Filters are things that unconsciously control how you see your world. I'm going to watch out for your attitude. Because how you think will show on your attitude. When I give you money to spend, I'm going to watch what you spend it on. Yes. If none of it comes back to me to say thank you, I'm watching. I'm going to watch how you spend your whole day. Do you remember me through all the day? All right, so over time, and because I have some experience in this, I don't think 2 months will be too much for me to realize that you are genuinely not supportive. You just like my money. Yes.
I don't know why this is cracking me up so much, but Amara, don't you think women who are breadwinners, when they have amazing partners, because I know someone who is going through this, don't you think, let me put you, don't you think you're asking for too much? Because if the roles were turned, a lot of women, they get money from the partner who brings so much, and yet they don't ask for all of these things. Don't you think you're just allowing different emotions to becloud your judgment?
Not at all. This is not emotions beclouding anybody's judgment at all.
Okay.
It's about what you want. It's about, because if genuine care is important to you, then you need it. If it's that important to you, it's going to help you continue to succeed. You need it, and you need to be sure that the person you're bending by your backwards over is deserving of that.
Exactly.
Otherwise, he has no business being in your home. You are not the breadwinner because you wanted to be. You are a breadwinner because circumstances happened.
Exactly.
Okay, the family is now depending on your income. It's not because you wanted to support him, support his family, support the children. No, not at all. All right, so it was circumstantial. He has to also be up. All right, so until you navigate through the weather, all right, through that storm. So everybody should have these things. Everybody should figure it out. I can tell you for sure that even for a man, if his wife is not genuinely caring about him, it's going to be uncomfortable.
Yeah, that's very true. That's very true. For as much as I love asking these questions, of course, we all know where I stand in this matter, but I'm just going to... Of course. I know. All right, thank you so much. Amara, but before I let you go, I know you're a very busy individual. It's not easy being an...
It's such a pleasure.
No, really. But for that woman out there who has decided and she has a partner or a husband who genuinely loves her, cares for her, shows her that support, and helps her through it all, even if his earnings might not be as much as hers, but she does a lot. Say something to her.
Well, dear lady, I can tell you that I love you and I am so proud of you. First, for taking the courage to be all you can be and supporting everyone around you. I can tell you that whatever you are sowing, you will reap in a millionfold. So keep being you and keep soaring. Be all you can be.
I like the fact that she mentioned be all you can be. Always remember that family comes first. When it comes to that beautiful home in which you have, that house in which you have, family should come first, and togetherness, understanding, unity is a key factor. Thank you so much, Amara. And of course, I'm going to get your name this time around. Amara Chidinma Ezediniru.
Absolutely.
And she is a workshop optimization, workforce optimization expert. Thank
That's
you.
right.
Thank you so much for being a part of the program. It's always an amazing time having you here.
Same here, Jubilee. I'm happy I came.
All right, part 2 of our discuss of the day on Global Morning. We're going political now with Huyi Agbomofoigbe and a very interesting guest. Stay tuned. Do not go anywhere. It's Global Morning. Keep watching.
Global Morning is your top morning show here on Global Television.
We bring you fresh news updates daily while delving into a variety of current affairs and topics.
And at the same time, keeping you well informed about important events, both national and internationals.
Global Morning serves as a valuable source of information, helping viewers like you start your day well informed.
Stay connected from Monday through Sunday to a wide range of latest news making rounds on Global Morning.
We're on the road to protest. And the president meets all of our demands.
This is Global Morning.
Is your top morning show here on Global Television.
We bring you fresh news updates daily while delving into a variety of current affairs and topics.
And at the same time, keeping you well informed about important events, both national and internationals.
Global Morning serves as a valuable source of information, helping viewers like you start your day well informed.
Stay connected from Monday through Sunday to a wide range of latest news making rounds on Global Morning.
We're on the road to protest. And the president meets all of our demands.
This is Global Morning.
The agitation for state creations has again become a front burner issue today in this country. From end to end, we see, well, political actors and even non-political actors now saying that it's high time another consideration is given to the issue of state creation. As a matter of fact, there had been times when Nigeria didn't have state as we know it today. It only had the regions. Today, we have moved from 9 states to 12 states, all the way to 36 states, aside the FCT, by the way. But the question is it states, in this case, more states that the country needs at this point, or is it a matter of paying more attention to the existing states as they are today, strengthening their base across fronts, making the governors understand their roles in the first instance, what they should do for their respective states at that level of subnational? Because some people say, well, it appears the priorities are being misaligned by calling for more states to be created, and their argument is simply based on the fact that, as it stands today, the existing states are either mediocre for the most part or are barely struggling to survive. Well, at the national level, that conversation is big. We understand that it's part of what some persons are now also proposing alongside the need for creation of state police and several other issues that have become of importance at the turn of the 21st century. Of course, let's also take away the fact that the devolution of power, that is big. People say let's decentralize, because what we have today, they argue, is not federalism, or some say it's not true federalism. So it's a bit confusing, and that's why we have someone this morning on the program who is going to help us find some sense here. I'm joined by Dr. Oke Ezeogu. Is a lawyer and a public affairs analyst. I'll say a big thank you to you, Doc, for making our time this Wednesday morning.
Thank you very much.
So let's start from somewhere. Are we misaligning priorities by saying let's create more states, instead of saying let's look at what states are even robust or vibrant enough? Where exactly do you stand in this conversation?
Well, over the years, we've always had this agitation for state creation. It has always provided the necessary distraction, political distractions at critical moments. Like now, we're in a critical situation.
Because of the election in 2027?
Yes, we're in a critical situation. We are looking forward to 2027 election. Our economy appears to be wobbling, and people are not really having the best of time and all that. And insecurity, of course, a lot of challenges all over the place. So I see this agitation at this moment as comedic, because I'm sure it's just designed to provide the necessary distractions and the red herrings that will naturally go to the critical area to, all this agitation, I want to have my state and all that. And as soon as that happens, every attention is now diverted to that area. And then the real situation, the real problems in the country takes the back burner. So that's what I feel.
Quite sad. There are people who have now called very specifically that we should go back to the days when Nigeria had regions. For example, do you share that sentiment?
Well, to the extent that our regional leaders appeared more serious
than what we have today?
Than what we have today. They appeared more serious. Even though they had some tribal inclinations here and there, especially towards the end of that era, when tribalism came into the arena and religion came in, and these two issues and items started modifying or remodifying or manipulating the actual situation, what it ought to be. So, but before then, we had regional leaders who were actually pragmatic, dynamic in real terms. In the north, for instance, we had Ahmadu Bello. Give it to him. He gave the north everything they have today in terms of recognition, in terms of respect, in terms of name it. He gave it to them. He was patriotic. He loved his people. He was ready to do anything to carry his people along, and he did a very large extent. And nobody was complaining, at least not loud enough. Okay, in the southwest, we had Bafemi Awolowo. Give it to him. The bulk of the elites today from the west, southwest, all were byproduct of some of his policies, educational policies, scholarships, and all of that. The agricultural reforms, then the cocoa stuff and all that, they all made all the difference. And to a very large extent, that was the basis of the foundation for their economy and their growth. In the southeast, you had, beyond Nnamdi Azikiwe, who was a political leader, kind of, we had Emeagwali Okpara, one of the most pragmatic of all of them. I'm not sure any leader from the southeast could have come even half of what we had in Emeagwali Okpara. Developmental strides, industrialization, farming, this palm plantation, all over the place. He had it, and the byproduct of all we had then led to the building of some of the universities we had today, like University of Nigeria and Nsukka, even that of Southwest. Of course, we had Bafemi Awolowo University, and a good many of them. You understand? So we had leaders. Aminu Kano, we had the Akintolas, we had JS Academy. These are all regional leaders, even within their own micro zoning arrangement and all that. They had it. So I'm not sure at this moment we still have leaders who can stand tall and really begin to stand not just for their people, but why they're thinking of their people, whether they're thinking of the survival of this nation. It looks like we are in deficit of that at the moment.
Quite a sad narrative. But let's look at how that there are those who say, in the southeast, for example, they say, look, we are being shortchanged. That has been the case for a while. I mean, we are the only region that has 5 states. How do we find a level of equilibrium? That's a strong argument from leaders in the southeast, for example. But for the sake of perspective, I just want to ask you, will the creation of more states, on whatever level, answer the problem of Nigeria?
Well, it's not going to answer the problem of Nigeria, because the problem of Nigeria, of course,
is beyond state creation.
Beyond state creation. But if I have to get back to the southeast, you see, the problem we have in this country is that outwardly we appear to be pretenders in almost everything we do. If you are talking of equity, if you are talking of justice, there's no reason why you cannot give the southeast one state to make up for the imbalance, even if it's not going to balance, because I know some states have about 7, I mean some regions have, zones have 7 or something. But at least minimally 6 can go. You understand? We had old agitations. And like I said, like I keep saying in some other places where we've had reason to talk about this, we had provinces, what we call provinces, just immediate post-colonial period.
Right. In the 60s?
Yes, in the 60s. We had the provinces. At the moment, some of these provinces, almost all the provinces have become states, except a province like Nsukka province that is agitating for another state now. They don't have. They have not been fortunate to have a state. And that's an old province, provincial capital. Nsukka, for instance, is an old provincial capital. And then we had the Goja Goja was a province, and then they're agitating for their own state. And I don't know whether you've been to Cross River. If you go to Cross River and see the landmass between Calabar and Goja, it is intimidating. I'm talking of ours, right?
Within the same
Within
state?
the same state, you know. And these people have been agitating. The same thing with Nsukka, where you have, the other state agitators, where you have people of the same cultural background, everything. The population is quite huge. The local governments are many, and the rest of them. Yeah, they're not getting it. So I'm sure there are other considerations that are not really on the table for every one of us who is interested in state agitation to harness or something. It looks like that's what I feel. But what I'm saying is that beyond even the Southeast, they should go back to the drawing board. Look at those old provinces that today are still struggling to have their states. They should give it to them. And there has to be a reason for this. I mean, you are taking a policy step. There must be a reason. If Mr. President wakes up tomorrow and say, look, every other province in this country has gotten a state, remaining this is that, maybe Jebu or something, you know. Now, it is necessary that we give it to them. That's equity.
Right.
That's fairness at work. It doesn't have to be because it is Southeast. I don't know whether I get it right. Yeah, it doesn't have to be because it's Southeast.
But I want to, I mean, maybe at this point we should just do a bit of pivots. And separatist agitations in Nigeria have become rife in recent years, whether it's in the Southeast or even in the Southwest. Now we know, quote unquote, some of the drama that has ensued on account of these agitations. What's the best way to get around this? Because obviously we're not ready to have that conversation about a referendum just yet.
Yeah, you cannot really rule out separatist agitation, even in smaller terms, because, and like I keep saying, before it gets to separatist agitation, there must have been internal dynamics that have been weighing down a number of persons, or a group of persons, unattended to by those that should attend to it. So it's just like when you put explosive in a bottle and cork it. And of course, explosive is explosive, it will naturally explode.
Right.
But it is possible again that if it is not corked, and there is a leeway through which any of the components could find a way, it's even possible that it won't explode.
Right.
We are talking of chemical or whatever.
Yeah, but that's a gamble.
That's a gamble, how to say, yeah. So, but what I'm saying is, when people are being marginalized, development is taking place in other areas and are not getting. They are being underrepresented wherever they are. For instance, in this country where you have a state having 40-something local governments, and some states have maybe seven local governments. Even when one of the local governments could be as can create 5, 6, 7 of the other ones in 44 or 30-something or 20-something local governments. I don't know what else I would have.
Right. So, again, it goes back to inequity.
Inequity, yes. They are not getting a fair share. They are looking at other areas developing, their places are not developing. If, for instance, each local government in this country is giving 10,000 naira, and the state has 4 local governments, multiplied by 10,000, and I have 7 local governments, multiplied by 10,000. What makes you think that the person who is within the 7 local governments will be happy that these other people are having that money? We're talking of national cake. This money belongs to everybody.
Right.
You understand? So what we are saying is, except to begin to work on the distortions in our system, getting the right population, ensuring that various regions are made, I mean, to come, even not even at par, close to what looks like we care for yours and all of that. And then if you want to develop the country, don't develop a particular area at the expense of the others. We are talking of federalism. You give, if you have 6 items, 1 to each of the zones. Within their own framework, they cannot decide where it should be. You understand?
Right.
But when you now say, for instance, a particular zone should have 4 of the 6, and then maybe 2 other zones have 1, and the rest wouldn't get. So these are some of the reasons why people agitate for state creation. One, these are some of the, and when it becomes bottled up, this agitation bottled up, gets bottled up, then you now see people talking of separatism. We want to go our separate ways. Right. Trace it from the Biafran agitation to the Niger Delta agitation, the Adakaboro period and all that. Right. The Ariwas have agitated, the Duduwas have agitated. You understand what I mean? So the teams have agitated.
There's a strong history to it.
Yeah, there's a strong history to it. So it's not just about saying that we want to create state, What are the indices? What are the dynamics? Are you going to be fair? Are you going to be, are you going to be so considerate in doing this? And in any case, I'm even surprised that's why I said that the whole thing looks comedic, because I know that it is only the military that has succeeded in creating states in this country. Of course, using military fiat, decrees and all that. Overnight, they have their meeting, and when they come up with their decree and then create these states, your opinion is not important.
Right.
I'm not sure a civilian government has that capacity because of the kind of interests, political interests that will be entrenched. Who tells you that Mr. President will be able to shake the gab of his political party in considering where to take states?
Even as the leader of the party?
Yeah, he cannot. That's exactly what I'm saying. So he's a president of the country. But what makes you think that if there is going to be state creation tomorrow, he will just remove his APC gab and say, this is where I stand, without ruffling feathers.
So partisan interest is also.
Oh yeah, these are the things. So that's one of the reasons why it will be difficult to. And in any case, Section 8 of the 1999 Constitution as amended is a very difficult. It made a very difficult provisions.
How difficult is it?
It is because, for instance, Section 8.1 talked about a request, of course, which is normal. Every other group that wants to have their state would naturally apply and then request for it.
Right. And
then it tells you to go and get two-third majority from, of the House of Assembly. Then the council, the local governments that make up the place, you get two-third of their council members.
Their own legislative arms.
Oh yes. Then you now get two-third of the House of Assembly too, making up the area. Then of course you now have a referendum where two-third of the people, the population that make up that entity, will now say yes, we really need this state creation. And then after that, National Assembly will now have to come in to say, okay, now we accept it. Then it has to go around again because there has to be general acceptance from state assemblies that, okay, we don't have any problem if you give them state and all of that. How do you get that when such a state is probably having their own agitation?
That's right.
So it's a very difficult thing under a civilian.
I like to ask this really because this conversation is quite hydra-headed. But let's talk about how that it's still a bit confusing, maybe hazy is the word, that we say we borrowed, so to speak, this democracy presidential system of government from the United States of America, but then we are still having question marks over whether or not what we are practicing today in Nigeria is federalism. What exactly are the elements that are missing?
When there is no democracy
in
an African setting.
Including Nigeria?
Yes. In fact, Nigeria is even a worse culprit. That's for me, I believe that Nigeria, by now, considering our trajectory, over the years with the up and down, civilian regime, military regime, civilian regime, military regime, over time we are expected to have grown beyond where we are at the moment. You understand? Where you don't need to be coerced into voting in elections, and nobody should stop you from voting in an election, and nobody should stop you from campaigning for whoever you prefer, your preferred candidate in elections. And then we should have passed the stage where we are talking about glitch in our electoral system. We should have passed the stage where collection of results is an issue, and announcement of results is an issue. As far as I'm concerned, it appears we are almost back to even the pre-independent period was
not even pre-1999. No. Far back beyond that. Right?
Apart from the June 12th, when that was the only time we would have gotten it right. We would have gotten it right in 2012 because Nigerians. I was serving somewhere in Sokoto State, and I remember that very morning we went out for elections. I came out and saw people queuing up. So when you come, you queue up behind whoever. This is SDP, this was SDP, this was NRC, and freely, and there was no quarrel. We all did that. The electoral officers counted us, noted the results, and we all dispersed. And they transmitted. There was no issue. And before the close of the day, the result was virtually known, except that the usual process of processing these results had to, So, we would have gotten it again right in 2023 because a lot of dynamics came on board. People were made to believe that, yes, this was democracy in action. Come and vote, your votes will count. So much money was expended on acquiring all manner of equipments and all of that for INEC. I'm not sure there was anything INEC requested for that they didn't get within that period.
So there was no paucity of funds, for example?
Yeah, there was no paucity of funds. They did request, I'm not sure they requested for it, because we spent almost close to 400 billion naira.
To prosecute that
election. Only for a technical glitch to come up and mess up the whole thing and all of that. And these are man-made. It's not. So what I'm trying to say is, our leaders should look at God and say, please, you created me. I am leading a people. I'm ruling over a people. I am going to obey the constitution of this country to the letter. And of course, that's the oath they all take each time they are elected.
Right.
And if they do that and follow the spirit and letters of the Constitution, we wouldn't be telling all these stories about contradictions, about distortions in our system.
Let's take a quick break at this time, Dr. Ezeogo, because this is, again, one very a stretch of a conversation. When we return, we'll talk about the sub-nationals. What exactly are they also lacking in terms of driving development from bottom to top? Stay with us, everyone. All right. Quite frankly, this is where we are going to just switch gears, as I say, to look at the subnational. Dr. you know, it happens it's almost like the standard practice. Every time there's a problem in the country, all eyes by default, I don't know if it's an impulse or instinct of some kind, will turn to the federal government. So everybody is talking about the president is not doing that, the federal government is not doing this, and blah, 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 blah. Do we really understand that we have subnational governments, from the states to the local government, for example? How much are we driving development on those levels? Because, yes, while on the one hand, there are people agitating for more states to be created, what are the existing states, all 36 of them, doing as of today?
Some of the states appear to be doing well. Some of the states appear to be doing well. It's not about, you see, this mentality of let's go to Abuja, take this money and come and divide.
The monthly allocation.
The monthly allocation. I think that appears to be fading away gradually because the 2023 election threw up a number of issues that today, if you go to the social media, you see people who will be asking their representatives, their senators, their local government chairman, what did you do with this so and so money? What did you do with so and so money?
Right.
And then, if there is any development anywhere, you still see people trying to monitor whatever thing that is happening there. Sometimes, if the value is jacked up or the contract sum is jacked up, you see people agitating and all of that. And if you do a shoddy job, you still see some people who will now come up and say, hey, come on, this is not a good job. And because the social media has provided all the leeway for people to really ventilate whatever thing they feel and all that, even though sometimes you see some fake news and concocted stories and all that. But what I'm saying in essence is that by now, states should begin to believe and know that it's not going to be business as usual, whereby you must go to Abuja to collect an allocation before you do anything in your state. States must begin to look inward. Some states, I won't name them so that it wouldn't look like I'm campaigning for them, but some states are actually doing well, getting involved in businesses, you know, trying to invest in businesses that could generate revenue, generate employment, and the rest of them. The days of everybody becoming a civil servant,
right,
it's not going to work because the dynamics, they are changing. The economy is not in the best of shape. Hunger is in the land. Insecurity has made it impossible for us to guarantee our food security. And to that extent, governors must go back to the drawing board to begin to look for ways and means of encouraging SMEs, you know, to come up, you know, cottage industries and all those things that, even local industries, like, even not because of the insecurity, there are things that they do in some local communities that can be upgraded, you know. Farm settlements can be set up, protected by the state, and food can keep on coming from there. There are some states that are food baskets of this country. State government should look towards that area and ensure that not even the federal government, the state governments. I'm also aware that when you talk of security, there are only chief security officers in name, but again, there can always, before the coming of the police and the rest of them, we've always had local vigilantes.
Across the country?
Across the country, yes. There's no state, or there's no local government, or there's no town or village you go today in this country that wouldn't have youths who are guarding the communities.
Is that sustainable?
Well, it depends on their...
Is it just a matter of being, I mean, the devil's alternative of the country?
Yeah, for want of... since we're in deficit of security presence in the states,
right,
of course, you have to look inwards. So what I'm trying to say is, except that the federal government appears to be playing politics with local government autonomy. Otherwise, if what we are reading as allocation to local governments is given to local governments, and then the chairman of local governments are given the free hand to work with this money. Because for the first time in this country, we are having the local government getting 1 billion in a month. Something that has never happened before. In the past, it used to be 100,000, 100 million, 80-something million, 70-something.
So they pay salaries, buy stationery, and wait for the next month.
And wait for the next month. You know, today we're having local governments getting 1 billion, but whether that 1 billion is getting to the state, to the local government, is what I cannot say.
Right.
But indications are that these local government chairmen are not really in charge of the finances coming to the states, to their local government.
Which again is another problem.
Which is another problem in real time. So I am thinking that for me, if the federal government can summon the political will and courage to enforce the ruling of the Supreme Court in terms of the autonomy of the local governments, and then ensure that there is an amendment to the electoral structure within the local government, whereby INEC takes full charge of the elections in local governments. So much so that if elections are conducted, in other words, every party can now produce a candidate.
Right.
And then they will go to the...
So you don't have to be the governor's hallelujah boy.
No, it doesn't have to be the governor's candidate, because the problem today is that 99.9% of all the local government chairmen in this country today are governor's candidates. And you know, much as I know, much as I do, that he who pays the piper determines it. If the local government, if the governor is the one that appointed you to go there, and then you now get there, and then allocation is made, he tells you to bring this money. So, you don't really say no. And in our own system, where the opinion of minorities hardly matter, they can only make their noise. Even when you go and report, who are you reporting to? Is it the person who wants to harness, who probably is part of the cabal that wants to have this money, or what? They're not reporting to anybody. So let the federal government do what they should do. Enforce and energize the enforcement of the Supreme Court
judgments on local government autonomy.
Provide a structure. You know, structure is in such a way that this money coming to the local governments will reach the local governments undisturbed.
Right.
Ensure a level playing ground for electoral process within the local government, so that independent candidates away from the governors can emerge. In fact, when that happens, we begin to have a robust conversations on developmental strides in local governments.
All right, let's wrap things up now, Doc. On the final note, before now we've heard about things around restructuring, for example. Help us create context for that and the feasibility or otherwise of Nigeria being restructured, whether in the lifetime of the administration of President Bola Tinubu or sometime after that.
Well, the restructuring appears to be the best bet on the table now if we are really serious. But just like we explained earlier, the fear of survival by the components of the federation. Now, there are states actually, even when they're agitating for states here and there, how many of the states can really survive on their own? When states find it difficult to survive, existing ones, and you are now coming up with a structure that probably takes away the bulk of what they used to survive on, like allocation now, monthly allocations and the rest of them from the federal government. Obviously, many of the states cannot really generate internally generated revenue that can sustain them in any form. So there is that fear that, because it's almost amounting to resource control.
That's right.
Whereby, let's say the Niger Delta, for instance, whatever they have in the Niger Delta, they only have to pay a certain percentage to the center. But we all know that the bulk of the money they share every month come from some of these areas.
Right.
There are states that generate so much revenue because of the business activities there. There are also states that you cannot generate anything because we don't really have any thriving
commercial activities
there. So these are the fears, and it is except these fears are addressed, and they must be addressed not by the federal government directly, but they must be addressed by the locals, the governors, who will now start working to develop their states to the extent that they can generate revenue on their own. Then open up the mineral sector. So many of the states have mineral components that can really take the states to wherever. Talk with the federal government. Do the capturing of all these the minerals, and then even if the country is restructured, pay the same quantum of royalty to the federal government. But unfortunately, and regrettably too, the bulk of what we get from our minerals are unaccountable beyond the oil.
Right.
They are not accountable. And it looks like any government that comes on board gets subsumed into the same arrangement,
right.
You know, where such government benefits while they are on seat, and when they leave, the same problem keep on persisting.
So it's just a cycle.
It's a cycle.
I'd like to say a big thank you to you at this point, Dr. Oke Ezeogu, a lawyer and political analyst, for coming to join us this morning to talk about the agitation for state creation, and your points are very valuable in this regard. Well, we're taking a quick break here, everyone. When we return, we'll talk about rebasing of Nigeria's gross domestic products, GDP. What exactly does it mean for the everyday Nigerian, and at what point will it move the economy from point A to point B? All of that and much more coming up shortly. Do stay with us.
Show here on Global Television.
We bring you fresh news updates daily while delving into a variety of current affairs and topics.
And at the same time, keeping you well informed about important events, both national and international.
Global Morning serves as a valuable source of information, helping viewers like you start your day well informed.
Stay connected from Monday through Sunday to a wide range of latest news making rounds on Global Morning.
We're on the road to protest. And the president meets all of our demands.
This is Global Morning.
morning show here on Global Television.
We bring you fresh news updates daily while delving into a variety of current affairs and topics.
And at the same time, keeping you well informed about important events, both national and international.
Global Morning serves as a valuable source of information, helping viewers like you start your day well informed.
Stay connected from Monday through Sunday to a wide range of latest news making rounds on Global Morning.
We're on the road to protest. And the president meets all of our demands.
This is Global Morning.
All right, so let's get our last conversation on the program on the road this morning. There seems to be this very, if you like, strong correlation between data and the economy. As a matter of fact, it will appear the economy cannot move from one point to another unless, of course, you have data to drive it in terms of planning and, of course, projection. However, gross domestic product, GDP as we often call it, is one that creates a bit more haziness for citizens than it helps them to understand how that economy is probably moving from point A to point B. Therefore, at this point where the conversation about rebasing the GDP is becoming a bit more, if you like, rife by the day, it's only natural that viewers want to understand exactly what the dynamics are and how they influence the pattern of the economy from the standpoint of the GDP. This morning, I'm joined by someone to help us find some sense and perspective in this regard. Abiodun Adeniyi is a professor of communication at Bayes University here in Abuja. Prof, thank you very much for coming through.
Thank you, my pleasure.
Let's talk about, first of all, GDP. What exactly is it in real terms, beyond, well, textbook economics, as they call it? And then, what are the elements around it in relation to the economy?
Okay, I think in regular understanding, the GDP is gross domestic product, right, which is an aggregate of the total body of activities in terms of goods, the sales of goods, services, that transpires in the country, over the particular period of time, usually 5 years, advisably. But sometimes we get measurement, going beyond 5 years, usual situations. But actually, it should be every 5 years, going by global, going by recommendations by global bodies. And of course, it helps an economy to understand the state of its well-being, right, to be able to know where weaknesses are and appropriately make projections, into the next
round of GDP and rebasing, as the case could be. It's very important to understand it because it helps in different areas. It helps for planning. It helps for the gauging of where else a government or a country needs to invest its efforts, towards development. So GDP might just be concerned about growth, but the development element is also very important.
That's right.
But if you do not understand it, and then of course you cannot be focused on development. So by the time you understand your GDP, your growth may be appreciable. Then of course you can begin to make projections for development. But if growth is not appreciable, then you know where the limitations are, and you build towards the next level.
Interesting. And then, I mean, one of the, if you like, indices by which countries are measured economically is the size of their GDP.
Yeah.
And then you're wondering, is there a nexus between GDP and economic development? And to what extent is that? For example, if we say the GDP of Nigeria is XYZ, is that clearly or definitively indicative of how well the economy is?
Not necessarily. Again, it might also be
an indicator.
It might be an indicator, but not necessarily. Because if you see most countries with huge GDPs, they're also very developed. And sometimes you see some countries with low GDP being able to be classed as developed in terms of the provision of the basic necessities of life that people in developing countries are also exposed to. But what we always want to imagine if there's growth, of GDP, it's just a symbol of increased activities in that entity over a period of time. Increases of activities, trade, commerce, investment, production, huge transactions, in service at the service level as well.
Right.
Then of course, if there's this boom, you can expect that it will trigger the multipliers on the back of the opportunity to provide jobs, stimulate, trade, stimulate all sorts of economic activity. So you can just, at the level of imagination, you can picture this and say, okay, your economy is doing well at the level of growth as indicated in your GDP. But it doesn't translate into development because development necessarily involve a couple of other things.
Right.
It's about how well wealth is distributed, how well services are provided, how well they are initiated, and sustained on a continuous level, without necessarily trying to repeat it. So if there's a continuation, a systematic ordering of these opportunities, of these provisions, these utilities and facilities to the people, and the system becomes a little more predictable, then you can say growth is equating to development. But they can work together. GDP is not an end in itself, necessarily, but can be a means to an end. Because if there's growth, it can propel development. But you can hardly have, sometimes you can also have development without adding up to growth, but it is rare.
Okay.
But you want the two to go together.
To go side by side.
Yeah, to go side by side. Yeah.
Let's talk about approaches for computing GDP. For example, you highlighted a few of them. You talked about manufacturing, you talked about the service level, the factor, I mean the real sector and what have you. But what are basically the approaches for calculating
I think in Nigeria, for instance, or in the average, in the usual country, it is the National Bureau of Statistics that is responsible for it. And they've got their networks across the country. They've got their partners, global partners, national partners as well. They have the expertise, the technocrats. They are, and of course, I think they do some comprehensive survey, and they have their mechanisms worked out. Their methodology is clearly worked out. They do comprehensive surveys over the years, over some years that are marked out, and they benchmark it, or they begin from a particular number of a particular year, as the baseline year. Then from then on, they make their projection. So it can be a very painstaking and expensive process.
That's right.
I'm sure that's probably the reason why we have gone beyond 5 years before we are stepping on to the next one. It can, and of course, it can be affected by a couple of other things. If a country is at war, for instance, you cannot expect it to be calculating its GDP. If a country is in some other kinds of political turmoil, maybe conflict, maybe absolute, completely diseased.
Maybe natural disasters.
That natural disaster, you cannot expect it to be computed in GDP. But when there's relative stability, there's no reason why they shouldn't embark on it, considering the role that it plays in the determination of a country's economy and, of course, in its progress.
Now the conversation really, front and center is about rebasing or re-benchmarking the GDP. Talk to us about the necessity of that and what the implications are.
Well, it's very necessary, especially now that we are where we are. We have grown far beyond what we were in the last 10 years. And, of course, our economy has also progressed. There has been some level of diversification. This is an economy that before now, we couldn't be talking about creative economy. It's injected into it's now very obvious that it needs to be added. Before now, you can't be talking about pension funds. Now it needs to be added. What about entertainment, And what about information technology, fintech, and all such innovations, These are new entries into the sector. Right. And you agree with me that they are booming and adding a lot to the economy, You can see how we are witnessing a multiplication. We can see how the fintech is creating some kind of domino effect on economic activities. How a lot more people are being brought into the informal sector, which is the dominant sector in the country anyway. But we are seeing that sector expanding. We cannot ignore these things against the background of our witness to how other African countries have been doing their own. Yeah. At the time in Africa we were the largest, but I think we're behind South Africa now, Morocco, and maybe Egypt as well. But maybe if I'm not going to be surprised if after the figures are out, we are shot up a little bit, if not necessarily the first, but not too far from the first.
As it stands right now, given all you've said in the last couple of minutes, it just shows that this process is not only cumbersome and rigorous, it's also expensive. But let's talk about the benefits that accrue to Nigeria on account of rebasing or re-benchmarking the GDP, whether at the policy level or on other fronts.
No, it has so many benefits. First, there are concerns now about our debt burden. Right. Nobody is saying that government should continue to borrow unnecessarily. But maybe by the time we do the rebasing, we'll see the figures. We probably may not have any reason to be alarmed at how much we're owing. Because if our GDP can accommodate it, why not? And as long as the debts are being used for good reasons, for good purposes, we are seeing activities going on at the state level, at the federal level, and of course, again, how GDP can be useful for helping foreign investors to determine the possibility of investing in our economy. Where the market could be there, but if there are no assurances that market can accommodate a kind of investment, no investor, no capitalist will want to bring his or her investment into that environment. But the GDP figure, will signal that an appropriate decisions can be made. Not necessarily one around conjectures, speculations, which are not necessarily certain.
Apparently, the rebasing and re-benchmarking is a cycle. But then how often should it be done, especially given the peculiarities associated with Nigeria as a country?
The global best practice is actually 5 years. But sometimes there could be, we may go beyond it, just like now.
Right.
Which is why.
So as it stands right now, we're going beyond 5 years.
Oh yeah, it's about 10 years now. It's about 10 years now, and of course, we know that we are late, but it's not to say that we cannot get back to it, get back on track, like we're presently trying to do, or like we heard that government is trying to do. And I think MBS, we have seen signals from MBS that they are ready. We have read it in the media a couple of times in the last few days. They're warming up, to release it. It will also be helpful. Don't forget again that most of MBS figures, like CPI, for instance, often instruct central bank fixing of MPR and such other things. GDP is also not far from it, you know, because there's a way these things can work together to give us a complete picture of what our well-being looks like.
The United Nations Statistical Commission has its recommendation in this regard in terms of what the cycle should be for revision. Yeah. So what are the factors that have made it near impossible for us to have done that before now?
I think, do not forget that within the last 10 years, we had the onslaught of COVID-19 pandemic. Right. That was somewhat instructive. And we've gone through some very traumatic electioneering process. You know, it may not necessarily be directly impactful, but you cannot ignore these elements as well. That's right. Then, of course, what about the costs? You know, the direct costs of processing it. You know, through expenditure on on field work, as the case could be. We may think this is routinious, but it can also be very laborious and cumbersome, considering the size of Nigeria, considering the workforce that you need, and considering that you are not going to be deciding these things alone. You also need the input of experts, you know, and people who have done it elsewhere, and people who can advise you appropriately. Right. These things don't come cheap, you know. All those factors will probably have been reasons, you know, why we haven't been able to do it until now.
Let's talk about some of the variables that have led to the choice of this particular base year. For instance, is it because there are developments that have now made that a matter of sheer necessity?
I think, you know, I was talking about COVID earlier. That's and the fact that we last did it almost about 10 years ago.
And that's a long time.
Sometimes, what I understand, the way I understand it works is that sometimes they want to look at a year where there's relative stability, you know, a year where there's a good ground for you to begin from. You know, there might be other reasons, but I think they concentrate more on the year that is most feasible. And do not forget how research works. You know, research is essentially begins at the level of judgment. You know, so you make your own judgment. You know, trying as much as possible, and not to introduce subjective notioning into it, you know, whether at the academic or at the governance level. You know, so what they would have thought is that, maybe not alone, the consultation with experts, foreign and local, is to think about the particular year and look at all the variables, dependent and independent, and just think that this is the year that is most appropriate.
Quite interesting. I'm sure there's that one person watching now and is asking, hold on a second, we understand data and GDP are more like Siamese twin, for example. Incidentally, maybe unfortunately so, we live in a country where there's always, for want of better words, question marks. You always have question marks over data. It will appear the authenticity or otherwise of data is always an issue of debate in this. So how do we trust these data?
Well, you cannot be too shocked about that. I'm not shocked because I know that in this part of the world, maybe for good reasons, we are very suspicious of government efforts. You know, what they tell us most of the time, we just put question mark to it because maybe past disappointments, you know, past letdowns. You know, but it's not going to be a reason why we should not keep trying. And data can actually be empirical. It can be scientific. You might say they have been manipulated, but let's just look at it in the primitive sense, in the primitive way. So if you don't want the data, or if you don't have the data, what do you rather work with? Are you going to just making conjectures, or you just be dreaming? You wake up, you vision. Today I predict the Nigerian GDP is one. Is that what you want to do?
On the basis of emotion.
On the basis of emotion. You know, so you still have to work with data. You still have to invest a little bit of trust in those who are in charge of it. Otherwise, you just be working, you know, without any navigator. Into working without a navigator in an area where you're not familiar with. So we need some guide, really.
We do.
And I want to also believe that there are ways in which you can critically check these things, whether they are true or not. it's not enough for you to just be critical of MPS figures. You just see the figures and say, I know what you're looking at. But have you looked at the methodology?
Right.
Have you looked at the research design? Okay. Have you looked at the concepts in the first instance? Look at what led to the final figure. Examine them all together from a holistic point of view and not from a singular unilinear dimension.
Right.
If we want to be fair to the figures, because I want to believe that they always do a good job, because they've got the experts. It's not a new body. They've been there over the years. They are not political. They are not. It's not a religious organization. It's not an ethnic organization. It's a national organization. Right. And of course, they've got partnerships, collaborations, with foreign bodies, the World Bank, the IMF, the United Nations Development Program, and such other multilateral organizations. So they don't work alone, irrespective of their own independent expertise.
Does GDP take into cognizance things like poverty numbers, unemployment rate, for example? Because those are issues that touch on the heart of what citizens are concerned.
Yeah, all those things will be reflected definitely. Right. But of course, again, if your GDP is growing, then the potentials for you to mitigate unemployment is also will be there. And again, if it is growing, you also know that it cannot be growing in a vacuum. It means that increased activities is not done. It's not a result of non-humans working. It is humans, that are triggering those activities.
Right.
So it means that more people are getting engaged. So by that, in that way too, you can say, okay, unemployment is probably reducing if the GDP is growing, or more people are likely to get employed or to quit the unemployment bracket in no time, as the case could be.
Let's talk about the private sector, because they are, to a large extent, the engine room, just like you have the SMEs, for instance. So when the GDP is rebased or re-benchmarked, what are the specific implications that action in itself have for the organized private sector?
The private sector is very critical in any economy. They provide the required stability. They are very useful for stimulating some big activity, huge activities, perhaps in the banking sector, perhaps in fintech as well, in construction, in industry, in manufacturing and production. So they are parts in the basing or in the recalculation of the GDP. It's always very, very important. And of course, you always continue to give kudos to them if a GDP becomes positive, because what government does is to be an enabler, creating the required environment, making regulations, and of course, partnering with them when the need arises. But they drive it in the main. And in a country where the government is in control of the commanding heights, you will say that isn't suitable enough or good enough for free market operations. It's not an economy; it's a controlled economy, and controlling economies is becoming a thing of old now. Even the old Soviet socialist republics, are starting to liberalize. Creating initiative for citizens to be integrated into the economic matrix. So ours is the pseudo-capitalist economy. We're just trying to grow, and if you want to thrive as a capitalist economy, you need to encourage the private sector. And if your GDP has grown, of course, you always will want to think that the role of the private sector cannot be undermined in the circumstance. They will have been a part of it, and it also mean that the prospect that they will continue to collaborate with you, and help you grow the GDP further, is actually profound.
I can imagine. Well, it turns out this is where we're going to leave it for now.
Thank you.
Incidentally, the process has just, barely even started, which means we'll have a lot to track going forward. And Global Television, as always, will keep an eye out for you in terms of these developments. I've been speaking with Professor Abiodun Adeni. He's a professor of communication at Base University here in Nigeria's capital, Abuja. Prof, again, thank you for coming.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
We'll take a break now. When we return, Jumai and I will wrap it up on today's edition of Global Morning. Global Morning is your top morning show here on Global Television.
We bring you fresh news updates daily while delving into a variety of current affairs and topics.
And at the same time, keeping you well informed about important events, both national and internationals.
Global Morning serves as a valuable source of information, helping viewers like you start your day well informed.
Stay connected from Monday through Sunday to a wide range of latest news making rounds on Global Morning.
We're on the road to protest. And the president meets all of our demands.
This is Global Morning.
For those who followed our last conversation a while ago with Professor Abiodun Adeniyi, one of the things we highlighted was population. And that seems to ring a bell in my head for an obvious reason. Friday, 11th of July, is World Population Day.
Yes, it is.
And a lot of conversation will happen on that day, not just by way of talking alone, but also reflecting and seeing how far we've come.
Yes.
Today, for instance, we're not so sure what the numbers stand at in Nigeria or in many other countries across Africa.
Very true.
Today, you're hearing 180 million. Some people say 200 million. Others say 230 million. Others say almost 230 million.
Yes.
So there's not much of authority as to what the specific figure stands at. But that notwithstanding, we still need to look at what blessing does population hold. If you're 50 million, what does it mean? If you're 200 million,
exactly.
what does it also mean? There are people who are quick to say, look at China, see what they've done with their population. Look
Very
at India,
true.
see what they've done with their population. And in this regard, Nigeria is immensely blessed.
Yes, we
But
are.
on Friday, one of the big questions we'll be asking is, how much have we harnessed that blessing?
Exactly. Very important that we know how much we've harnessed that population and what we stand to gain and the advantage, disadvantage that comes with a very large population. It depends. Let's just hope and see what blessings it brings. And with that, we have to wrap up the program on Global Morning. And of course, the first discuss of the day, talking about women being breadwinners. I'm sure you learned one or two.
Owning the bakeries.
At the same time, and of course Amara, she came up and she's a workforce
optimization expert.
yes,
right?
she is. And then she came up and she broke it down to us and explained to us that sometimes it could be overwhelming, but if you have a very amazing partner who is very supportive, who cooperates and shows that he truly cares about what you do, well, it's good. You're good to go. And like I said, with that, we have to wrap it up on the program Global Morning. Thank you all for being a part of the program with us. Join Uyi and I same time tomorrow. Keep watching Global Television. I am Jumai Manson, and of course my amazing co-host who wears lovely glasses.
I'm Uyi Agbokwebe. Thank you everyone for watching.
Bye-bye.